welcome to Food for Thought. May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, so just like we did for Black History Month and Women's History Month, we are going to talk about some of the AAPI chefs here in the DMV area. First, let's talk briefly about Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. AAPI Heritage Month was started in 1992 to celebrate the contributions of AAPI people in the United States. The term AAPI is pretty broad, but to clarify, AAPI includes people with heritages from the whole continent of Asia, as well as the Pacific Islands of Melanesia, Micronesia, and Polynesia. Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month is important not only to celebrate historical and influential AAPI people, but it's also important in acknowledging the discrimination that AAPI people face. The South Asian hate movement was started recently to bring attention to and to end the racism that Asian and Pacific Islander Americans have been facing for decades. This movement is another reminder of the discrimination that all minorities face in America. Now, with that in mind, let's move on to talking about influential AAPI folks in the DMV food scene. The first chef is Chef Tae Strain, and he is a Korean American who came to the US when he was adopted as a baby. Growing up, Chef Tae was confused about his identity because he was American, but his family was Korean. He didn't understand how to balance his Korean heritage and American nationality, especially because he didn't grow up with any other Koreans. As he got older, he realized he wanted to learn more about his Korean heritage to better understand himself and his roots. Chef Tae began this learning as he trained to be a chef because he was now surrounded by a bunch of successful Asian Americans. He learned more about the Korean culture by learning how to cook the foods. He's currently a private chef in the DMV area, and he continues to cook Korean food in America to both teach about Korean culture and to learn more about his personal ties to that culture for himself. The next chef is Peng Lang Zhang, who also goes by the American name Peter Chang. Chef Chang was born on a farm in China where very few people leave the village, but he studied to be a businessman and disliked it, and then after his disappointed grandmother suggested he learned a practical skill, he became determined to become a great chef. He got really good at cooking in China, and in 2001, he started working as a chef at the Chinese embassy in DC. How cool. In a Style Weekly article, he said, quote, "My goal is to introduce China's culinary culture to the American mainstream. I want to do more than just feed people, I want to educate the average American diner." He's even begun to teach Chinese Americans how to make dumplings to keep the food traditions alive. Our last but certainly not least chef to talk about is Chef Simone Jacobson. She is co-owner of Fame, a Burmese restaurant on 8th Street, which she owns with her mother and business partner. She compares their mixed heritages to the food that they cook and to the mixing of heritages and cultures in the United States, because Simone is American, her mother is Burmese, and her business partner is Taiwanese Japanese. Chef Simone says Thame's food is also a mix of influences from Burma, China, Thailand, and India. Her goal with Thame is to encourage intercultural and intergenerational exchanges and to connect other chefs of color in the spice diaspora here in the States. She says what people of color really need is time and space, and that's the hardest resources for us to get, so she offers these things to other fellow chefs of color in the off hours at Thame. Most importantly, she says in the DCist article, now more than ever, with how divided American society is, to have a place where you can go and be welcomed and enjoy these foods from all over the world is super important. So let's give a shout out to all of these AAPI chefs in the DMV area for working to keep their traditions alive and for just making yummy food. By popularizing Asian and Pacific Islander cuisines, these chefs are helping to create more acceptance of AAPI people and their cultures and to bring better representation to the food world. During the month of May, maybe try switching up your restaurant routine by going to a restaurant owned by one of these chefs or another Asian American or Pacific Islander chef. And to learn more about the Stop Asian Hate movement, check out the website AAPIHate.org. That is all for Food for Thought. I will see you all back here next week. Bye!